It is a beautiful morning from Kampala. Today it's one of those good days when you woke up in the morning and you are not expecting rain, and you are not expecting either it will not rain or will rain, and boom, it comes and it rains. Then within a few minutes stand back to a light and very hot day. And that's what makes Uganda a unique country, a beautiful country. No wonder one had to call it a part of Africa. It is definitely a beautiful country. Welcome you again to this program. Of course, there was the earlier part of this program, and we had to have the information coming to you all the way from the National Drug Authority, and talking about your safety, your health in this part of the country. Today, we, like last time, we were still looking at issues that definitely concern us as people of Africa, and what makes us, the people of Africa, unique and different from the rest of the continents of this world. And of course, that also, talking of Africa, is a home where we all belong. We may be on the continent of Africa, we may be outside of the continent of Africa, but definitely Africa is a home for all of us. That name Africa, how it came to be, of course, was another discussion for another day. And why apparently Africa, why not maybe Ethiopia, why not Sudan, why not one of those countries that, or populations that you ever knew from the history of the continent and the history of the world. We are still looking at issues of religion, how religion has impacted the development of Africa. And from last time when we went off the screens, we had looked at exactly what in 1883 King Leopold II meant when he wrote a letter to the missionaries that by then were coming to work in the Congo about how they should treat Africans and how they should handle the Africans. And some of the writings in that letter, some of the points that he raised in that letter actually stand up to today. So you then wonder, was religion made for us? Was it meant to dampen our thinking? Was it meant to put us closer to God? Or was it actually meant to drive us away from both our values, but also from God? So those are some of the things that we still continue looking at, and shortly we'll be having a video which will again play for us for the second time, because last time we also played it. Unfortunately last week, because we had a live broadcast that came your way, we were not able to have that continuation of the next episode. That would have definitely come last week. So in the studio again today, I'm with Ndugu Rugarama and Rachel Takali, who will be discussing some of the issues of today. But in the meantime, I think let's have that video playing when the letter of King Leopold II of Belgium, if it is ready. And once we have looked at it, then we can look at the issues that come from that video. So for now, I think let's have that video as from that letter that was written in 1883. While we wait for that video, like I said, in the studio with Ndugu Rugarama and Rachel. And Ndugu Rugarama, I think you'll have this opportunity to say hi to the viewers as we wait for that video to be ready.
Good morning, comrades. We thank you so much for sparing time every Friday morning to tune in and be part of this big debate. Good morning to you, comrades Mtuta and our sister Rachel. This week for me, I have witnessed a sad moment. My aunt lost a very young girl. She had just completed senior 4. She died at Mulago. rare condition. I think it was something to do with blood cancer. And we are in preparations for burial. Such people really, nobody, I'm not saying anybody should die for that matter, but it is a natural phenomenon. But when you lose such a young soul, 16, 17 years, it saddens you, and that we are incapable of saving life here in our National Referral Hospital is also disturbing. We are preparing for general elections in DRC. My counterpart, the chairman of the Pan-African movement in DRC, Comrade Bosco, has been feeding me in, and I'm closely following the tempo, and the Pan-African movement is having observer status. We are going to be observing those elections. The African National Congress, ANC, has also organized the conference to celebrate and also drum up the support for the dismantling of the economic embargo against Cuba by mainland America, and it will be taking place in Joburg.
You're talking about the elections in
DRC.
Congo. DRC, yes.
Just around the corner, a few weeks.
We had about 22 candidates for the presidency, and I think 5 or 6 have dropped out. We are left with the number of them, but I'm told there are only 3 major also contenders for that
and maybe
election.
Also to say that it will, I hope it does not shock anybody. You remember during the Kabira's time, Kabira the son, there was, the country said that we are incapable of holding general elections because we don't have the money. They said that. And actually they adjourned, if there is such a thing. They postponed the elections because they didn't have the money. And probably I also witnessed Robert Chagulanyi going to back this time after 10 years ban.
But now on these elections, because you remember when they talked of no money for the elections, they said there were some friends, the foreign countries, that could not provide money for the elections in Congo. And of course that happens not only in Congo. Of course, as we speak, we're also having elections in, we had on Tuesday, and I'm told your friend Sisi
in Egypt,
yes, is assured of the victory, which election was badly attended. I think most of the people have, I don't know, out of exhaustion or out of whatever has happened, boycotted the elections. But of course, that doesn't matter. At the end of it, it's what, and this is what I normally tell people, what is counted are the ballots that are cast in the box, not how many people have boycotted. So when they boycotted, I think the others elected, and I'm told for that one, Sisi is heading for the election. So
I think for Egypt, the most important thing now is how they are handling their neighbor's case. What is happening in Gaza and how they have handled it. Actually, the administration, the political leadership in Egypt is scoring on the international front, although there was a question as to why they could not let in their brothers and sisters into the country. But they are also saying, no, if we did that, we would be allowing the occupying forces of Israel to take over the country, and they will never return. After all, they have a history. They never returned Golan Heights. They never returned Sinai. And how sure are we that they are going to return? But whatever they do anyway. So the internal politics in Egypt now are being heavily looked at from the lenses of the foreign policy, especially towards Gaza Strip.
Okay. I think if we may not have that video ready, what we, last time when we were discussing, we were looking at when this letter was written, there were a number of features that were of interest. Now, in his letter, King Leopold was saying, when you are teaching these people, don't teach them. Of course, he also appreciated and was telling these people, say, please, at least for once, you accept that African is no God more than you do. So there's nothing you are going to teach them. And their values already known. They are saying, don't steal, don't kill, don't go with someone's wife, don't. But now when you are teaching them, one of the issues in the letter says, teach them how to facilitate colonial administration and also how to facilitate industrialization. Now, when you look at those two factors, did this happen in an isolated way, or have we witnessed this form of indoctrination, we can call it, continue on the African continent, especially when it comes to education? Of course, he added, don't teach them how to reason, teach them how to read. Don't teach them God because they already know God. Don't teach them this because... So I want us to look at some of these issues, and we think, did religion facilitate administration? And if it did, was that a negative effect?
I'd like to bring this home, and in the present day where we are. First of all, the people to whom we refer, the Europeans and by extension Belgium, are post-Christian. I don't want us to still refer to Europe as if they're Christian by and large. Europe by and large is a secular entity as we speak. While many people say they are Catholics and others say they're Protestants, they don't practice religion anymore. I don't really see a direct link between the way Europe does its things today and what Leopold was saying. Leopold was pretending that he had religious interests at heart, but we know that he had other interests. But I think even where Ndugu Rugarama was going earlier on, this very week, a question that dates back to that very letter is back center stage as we talk. This very week, we know that one of the most prominent political leaders in this country, Kyagulanyi, is at the forefront of a storm where the people of Uganda are saying, look, you cannot or you should not go to the international scene and say you are representing the values, even religious, because we're talking about religion now. Kyagulanyi says he's a Catholic. You cannot say that the religion as we know it, the Catholic religion, agrees with the position you're taking on the latest spin on this human rights question. If Leopold those years ago was saying that Africans should not be allowed to reason, should not be allowed to take charge of their own destiny, I am saying that the Europe of today is still doing exactly what he was doing, but without falling back on religion. Secular states, as Europe is today, are driving an agenda that we still say is a misinterpretation of Christian values. The truth of the matter is that back in the late 18th century, when France decided to make religion separate from political matters, what they call the separation of church and state. And then, of course, before that, there had been the great conflict between the English king at the time, I think he was Tudor, who wanted to take a wife, having put away his own wife. That we know to have been the genesis of the Anglican faith as we know it today. He proceeded to remarry because the Pope would not grant him a divorce. What I'm trying to say is that religion in the day of Leopold, as concerns Europe, and religion today have nothing in common. Religion in Europe, that is. The agenda that is what was started in the days of Leopold is not really the agenda today, but to the same end. You see, while Leopold was confining himself to commercial interests, industrialization, and even pretending that there was civilization, today there is an attempt, whether in the name of religion, to reconstruct society. Religion, therefore, has taken on a new form, if you will. That form says you have to re-engineer, not just to say Africans cannot reason, but you have to replace the value system. Some of those people are in our churches who say these things. Some of these people are in the education system. Some of them, of course, are in the United Nations. But no one, in my estimation, should think that when Europe says they are setting a standard, it is not from a Christian perspective. I think that is very clear. It should be very clear to everybody. It is from a perspective of secular humanism. I am thinking Leopold, because he was a product of his time, at least he felt he needed to front religion. Today, there is no need to pretend that religion is what is driving the forces, whether they be American or whether they be European. Because we even see that, like I said, in a country where people are saying, Uganda is a very important example, where the people of Uganda, some of them religious. In fact, one of the people who has joined himself in a court case challenging the bill against homosexuality in this country is a priest. He's Pastor Semba. He is saying the values as they espoused in the Bible that we all read and championed by the people who first brought this religion are not what the form of Christianity that we have today. So when we are examining the contents of Leopold's letter, we must not separate it from religion as it is today. They're not the same. The Africans are saying, the Bible you taught us to read, the Bible as we understand it, is not what you're saying anymore. You have moved the bases. The scripture refuses homosexuality. The scripture refuses many things, among them adultery. It refuses stealing. It refuses many things. But we cannot still be saying we are practicing the same religion when you have divorced yourself from those values. The storm that we are in concerning what our society should be is both a fight to return to what religion is as should be, and what religion is as propagated by the West, what our African values are, and what we wish to do going forward. So really and truly, Mr. Mututa, when we refer to the contents of Leopold's letter, we have to come to a realization that the interpretation of religion in that day and the interpretation of religion today are not the same. That is why I was saying not long ago that there are voices in the Vatican today that are saying, look, please loosen the screws on divorce regulations in the Catholic Church. Loosen the screws on homosexuality. Loosen the screws on the transgender agenda. Allow them all, let us coexist. There are voices in the Anglican Church who are saying, look, the dean of the most important cathedral in Britain is a man who's a homosexual and who's not shy to be so. And the Church of England, the one that the Catholic Church, I mean the Protestant Church in this country, once agreed with, says, look, please, you can join one man to another in marriage. And the church in this country, for example, is saying, look, even while we had roots in that movement, we cannot accept such a position. So what we are saying is that the religion, whether that be the Anglican religion, whether that be the Catholic religion, Africans are finally saying, look, you led us a certain way, but we are now in a place where we can internalize these things and decide the best direction. If you have departed, you go your way. So what Leopold intended is finally being undone. We are saying we can reason that if we read in the religion that says, the Bible, and it says, look, stealing is bad, and tomorrow you say to me, stealing is good because I am a European, I cannot accept. So Leopold began a discussion that is still in progress.
I was reading some of the excerpts from that letter, and I'm like, I think when we look at religion, sometimes, and no wonder some people think religion is confusing, because why they think religion is confusing is because you are mixing religion and also either Christianity or religion and tradition, or so that mix there sometimes can lead to a lot of confusion. And you remember that part of the problem that I think Christianity faces is that when the king turned Christian, Constantine, who definitely became a key factor as religion was spreading through the rest of the Roman Empire. And of course, when you look at what happened in the Roman Empire and what happened in the Ottoman Empire and what happened in these other kingdoms, you find that religion was being viewed differently. Some people looked at it as an influence that will definitely affect their kingdoms. Others looked at it as a civilization that would trigger more development. And so all those mixed feelings, some people took religion because it was a powerful tool, had to take it up to have state religions that the state and the religion had to merge together. No wonder sometimes when you look at initially the dressing of the kings and their nobles was the same way the archbishops and the religious leaders were, because they were called ministers and ministers of the church. So I think that fusion also brought in a lot of confusion. But the most important thing, I think, is people to get down to the facts of what was written, because a lot will be said, but what is written in the Holy Bible, in the holy books, what does it teach? Apparently, what comes out is that even the Christians themselves, I think, don't take much time to read what is written in those books. No wonder they are being taught what they are supposed to be taught. Now, there is this issue, and one time we were sharing with Nduguru Garama, when Leopold was saying, when those he was calling them niggers. When those niggers come to your place, don't give them a chair. And don't when they bring you eggs and chicken, don't even invite them to dinner, and don't even give them drinks in your home. And in these villages, I think when we were growing up as children, we saw this happening. A priest or a person will move in the villages, and then Christians are giving them eggs. They are giving them what in form of appreciation. But I think that is not a problem to us, the Africans. Not that because we are naive, but I think it is the courtesy. But then that's the courtesy which is abused in Nduguru Garama.
Comrade, now the late Robert Mugabe, the former president of Zimbabwe and the chairman of ZANU-PF, addressing members of his party in the highest body of ZANU-PF, said that if you see gold rust, you know that it was not gold in the first place. When we see the holes that have been inflicted in Christianity, just a branch of religion, because we have got so many religious affiliations, and Christianity is one of them, then you know that it was a problem right from the start that the brand of religion, our relationship to this God through Christianity was problematic right from the start. And this is the rusting that we're experiencing in Christianity. That we can now start interpreting the scriptures rather stupidly, you will forgive my language, that now we don't see any problem with homosexuality, even when we know that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because of that. That now we can have a whole dean, a minister of the in the house of God, who confesses to be what led to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. It becomes, it sends us back to what Uncle Bob, Robert Mugabe, was talking about, that gold rusting now informs you that it was not gold to start with. That is one. Two, we must look at when I used to be a teacher full time, we used to set a question that discuss that the missionaries were front runners of colonialism, and it used to fetch 25 points, A level. Now, the letter which supposedly King Leopold II is writing is slightly before the 1884-1885 partition and the conference of Berlin.
Yeah, sure.
What does that tell you? That these ministers, the missionaries, were already in Africa. And does it therefore surprise you that whoever suspects and later on draws a conclusion that actually these ministers, the missionaries, were front runners of colonialism is correct? Now, three, when you look at a number of literature, the literature books, when you look at we used to have set novels in our times. I believe they are still there now. I don't know. Probably new sets have come up. There used to be a book by Mongo Betty. The setting was in Cameroon, and it was titled Poor Christ of Bomba. Now, Mongo Betty was such a prolific writer.
I know.
In the lines of this Ngugi wa Thiong'o,
Chinua
Achebe, you know, and the way he describes the white fathers, the Father Drummond, and what they used to do in Cameroon, and how they used to move around the villages, the collecting of the chicken that is
Exactly,
he's
talking about.
It is all there.
Yeah.
And you remember at one time the hen was flapping its wings, and you know when something of that nature happens, it means that it has been taken against its will.
Exactly.
In majority of the cases, whoever has taken it is actually a thief. You know, literature was such a beautiful subject. You know, so you see, the letter itself that King Leopold writes, and King Leopold, the history of Congo was that he was the very first colonialist. Now, after he had carved that DRC, current DRC or former Congo, as a private property, and he exploited it the way he exploited it, later, of course, after 1884-85 Berlin Conference and what it did, then the mismanagement which was overwhelming, it is handed over to Belgium. Now it is like coming from a flying pan to
Into
the
your
burning
fire.
But the point really there is that there is nothing, in my view, really, when you assess what is used to happen then and what is happening now, which the Leopold II wrote, that is even not happening.
Sure.
Why do I say so?
Which has never happened.
Absolutely. Why do I say so? I say so because the nature of education that he is talking about, where he says, teach them to read and write, don't teach them to reason. With all due respect to our education system, if there is any that we must extend, because we can come here in these studios, attempt to speak some good English. I don't know what that adds to us, because we know that the most progressive societies do not necessarily speak English. You see?
Sure.
We have got societies elsewhere in Japan, they don't speak English. You look at their life expectancy. Look at, although a language per se, although I'm a Pan-Africanist, a language per se may not necessarily be a panacea to great development. Why do I say so? Again, the community, the Cuban community, for instance, what do you call them? Are they Spanish? No, they are not. But they adopted Spanish as their language. Has it stopped them? Even under harsh economic embargo from development, look at their patient-doctor ratio. Look at their patriotism. Look at how, amidst the economic embargo, they are growing the economy. And so many examples abound.
So Chinese don't speak English.
The Chinese.
They do, but
basically what we are saying in relation to what King Leopold II letter says, and what we are experiencing now, is that we have to a great extent weaponized God. What was God's religion? Let's start from there. Because you see, we spend a lot of time. Last time when I was here, Comrade Mtuta and Rachel, I said myself, I remember, that without attempting to diverge into a lot of eschatological studies and, appearing very complicated, really, what Jesus Christ, as we have been exposed to him, what was his religion? Was he Catholic? Was he Anglican? Was he Presbyterian? But the fights we are having in this world have mainly been around how we must interact with this God who is actually supposed to be universal.
Exactly.
Those who profess Catholicism have always wanted us, and they went an extra mile. Are you not aware that during colonialism, for instance, we had religious wars where the so-called Catholics were fighting against Muslims? They even overthrew the leadership, even if it was traditional leadership, by the way. And I have had this talk, that you see, it is tradition versus Christianity. No, in my opinion, even Christianity is the traditional way of the whites, the way they approach God. Yeah, the cutting of the cake, you say, no, what have you cut? When you are going to look at the way they wed. Just because they wed, that way of wedding, their way of wedding is their traditional way of wedding. But we adopt it because of inferiority complex, and we say that now this is the Christian way. Where is it written in the Bible that in order to wed and you are wedding Christian in a Christian manner, you have got to move where we go, you have got to cut the cake, you have got to play the band, you have got to do all the rituals which the Christians do, thinking it is actually the Christian way of doing things. Probably, as a way of concluding on this also, my perception is that God didn't have a religion. It is us that we have Catholicized God. we have Anglicanized God, we have Presbyterian God, we have Muslimized God, and we are now in total confusion, and we are even ready and we have gone ahead to kill in the name of this particular God. It is therefore very instructive for us from the Pan-African point of view to realize that the God is not Catholic, God is not Anglican, God is not Presbyterian, God is not Muslim, God is God. And certainly, I have always argued and I will argue that God is not white, and maybe the closest God can be is black. I thank you.
I think it was very interesting. But I think also one of the things, the question is, or the topic revolves around religion and development of this continent. The place of religion in African development is in internalizing what this thing is and living it the way it should be, as opposed to waiting for someone else to tell you what should be. One of the things that is instructive is that today, 27%, and only 27%, of Europeans practice Christianity as the Bible says. Now, where does that leave the 70%? And moreover, the 70% are the ones who still come to this continent and say, I am a Catholic from wherever, but this is a man who is what they call a nominal Christian. The only time he invokes Christianity is, well, his people, on the day he dies, when they perform the final rites, and on Christmas Eve, when we have the little carols. In America, at least when I was there, if Christmas does not fall on a Sunday, no one goes to church. Mm-hmm. Christmas, people only go to church if it is a Sunday. So which means that this 25th is a Monday. They will not go to church. It will only be about eating, drinking, visiting family. In Europe, it's even worse. There's a generation of people who have no inkling that there is a Christ child involved in the Christmas occasion. All the Christmas means buying little green trees, putting little gifts, exchanging gifts, eating and drinking. Nothing about the Christmas message. The new child is born. That is not known to the current generation of Europeans. What I'm trying to say is that the only way that religion, whether that be Islam, whether that be Christianity or Buddhism, the only way it can work in the development equation that is Africa is if we do it through the eyes of an African. The way the scriptures are written, we take them, internalize them, practice them according to our understanding of this thing. Not according, because we said the white man is always changing goalposts. Today he's telling us, look, I know the Bible says it is evil in every way for a man to wed his another man. These are people who said so when they brought the religion. What has changed today where you're telling us, please accept that when a man wants a man, so be it. So we are saying these are no longer dependable religious partners. We can partner on water resources. We can partner on developing the highways. But when it comes to faith, when it comes to religion, when it comes to preserving good traditional ways forward, the Western people are no longer with us. We need to leave them where they went and continue our journey.
Apparently, I think there's a lot that's changing even within the Christian, the religious realm. We are now hearing voices. Last time I was hearing a priest, I saw a clip, I think an Anglican priest who was saying, but really, how do you begin telling us? And the good thing, when you look at the Leopold's letter, he definitely appreciates that by the time the missionaries are coming to Africa, Africans already knew God.
No, there is much more, Comrade Mtuta, that we actually knew. And I think Leopold was being frank by admitting some of the things which we knew. What didn't we know? We knew science, innovation. It is not the white man that taught us that eating raw meat, we had to graduate and go into discovering fire, sharpening iron ore into spears, arrows, and bows. It is not the white man.
What about the
structure
structure of society?
Man. Thank you. It is not the white man who told us
clans.
that, you see, the way of organizing a government, when he came here, he even admired because we had very organized systems. In one of the writings, Livingstone, was it Livingstone and his predecessor, said that I have found a very proud society, highly organized politically, and it would take us a great deal to break their structures, the political structures. It is not the white man who came and founded a university, just down here. Arguably, the very first university in the world. It is not the white man who discovered the form of writing, cuneiform, and hieroglyphics. Therefore, it is not all about knowing God. And certainly, there is no way a white man could have known God before us. And that is why I have argued, and I will argue still, that it is very difficult for me to comprehend a situation of how the white man ended up being colonizing us. And also how God this time could have been bribed that a white man who had participated in slave trade was better qualified to come back and teach us, which was greater inhuman, the highest crime that has ever been committed to mankind was slave trade. Not this what they are talking about, the Holocaust they are talking about. The Holocaust does not even come anywhere near the kind of murder that took place during slave trade. Oh, was it even murder? No, genocide.
Yeah, because even the numbers
that took place by the numbers overwhelmed.
Exactly.
It is therefore what we should be talking about is that can't we start debating when we lost the real God? The African man should start asking himself, when do we lose the real God? Because for me to contend with a lie that the God that we are talking about, whom is supposed to be universal, is the very God that was brought by somebody who participated in trading in human beings through people in the ocean, blasphemously named some of the ships in which he was carrying the human beings Jesus, you see, and that he went later to participate in the 1884-85 Berlin Conference to divide Africa, that he had the likes of Leopold writing letters instructing those who were front runners that please, these people already know God. They were a little bit telling the truth this time around. You see, but what you can capitalize on is to introduce the type of education which you have already here in that letter that Leopold wrote. Capitalize on this empty education and emphasize how to entrench the siphoning of resources. The mind is what we have not yet regained. Ideologically, the education system on the African continent, through colonialism, has managed to rob us of the knowledge of self.
Yeah, but now the problem even gets more compounded than that. When the Africans themselves don't believe that that is a problem. Because when you look at the trading of the humans was being promoted by the Africans, ourselves, the Africans, but also later on when these religions came, we stopped, I think, for us, or reasoning, but of course, like he was saying, that the teaching should have been based on whitewashing, so that we could not even resist to say, look, you are telling us that our medicines are bad, but these are the medicines we have been using over the years from our ancestors. You are telling us that
having the life expectancy well over, I'm now told, you know, there is a census which is coming.
Yeah.
And the doctor was there, the good Dr. Yubos was telling us that now our life expectancy jumped from 54 to 67. What a miracle. Whatever the white man is looking for. This time.
I need to be careful.
But, you know, that aside, even talking about religion and the business of development, in 1989, the then Pope, Pope John Paul II, I believe, he made an observation. It was not much talked about, but I'm thinking it was a confirmation of the reset that is religious affairs in terms of Europe versus the rest of the world, Europe in particular. Because I'm thinking of the most godless societies, Europe has to be up there. They no longer pretend that God is of any consequence. They just do their things. But he said at that time, the president of the Soviet Union at the time was Gorbachev, and the Soviet Union had just collapsed. And when he went there to the Vatican, one of the statements attributed to the Pope at the time was that Christianity or Catholicism had to learn to live with two lungs, or to breathe with two lungs. And he said at the time that the one lung, which represents the values of the West and its approach to religion, which is permissiveness, which is excessive liberty, and of course, re-engineering the way things are done. I'm paraphrasing now. Then he talked about the second lung, which represents those people who are still in the faith proper. The battle today is to get as many people into the one lung and starve the other of air. That battle is, yes, it may have been begun back in the day of the Tudors with the Anglican Church, and then Leopold in the Congo situation and others. But that battle is raging more fiercely, even if there are no spears and swords involved. This time it is a battle for the mind. It is a battle to reset our thinking. In those days, Leopold just said, just deny them knowledge. Make sure their own knowledge is killed. Make sure they're just walking nobodies who are going nowhere in particular, controlled by other variables. Now they're saying, let them walk around, but on a switch that is clicked by whoever in London and in Germany and wherever. Allow them to think they have their own purpose and plan, but in effect, we'll tell them what to study, when to sleep, who to talk to, for how long, and for what reason. And then at the end of the day, we'll be sitting squarely at the base of their affairs. So it is no longer a question of religion and development. It's a question of secular humanism and African development.
I missed my friend who should have had him on the show today, but he later on told me they had a sick person in Sokoto and they could not be online with us. But what we are looking at, what came of Africans, and in fact for him was the Bishop of Sokoto in Nigeria, and he was also believing that I think there is a problem, because when you look at issues that eventually cropped into Christianity and were being used now as tools to control the minds of the people who are Christians. They're not, Christians also need to wake up when they read things that have been smuggled into Christianity from the religion. I told you at the beginning that when the Constantine became a Christian, because in that part of the Roman Empire there was a lot of paganism, like we could say. They were also practicing the way they were worshipping their god, and one of them was the paganism of even vices. Like now we're celebrating Christmas, because when you read in the scriptures again, you don't find that Christmas, but it is a commercial thing that has caught the whole world, and people now think Christmas.
Having ejected Christ from the equation.
Exactly. So you have to have something there. So you realize that this symbolism, which was promoted by the Roman kingdom, the empire, and finally found its way into Christianity. Remember when this bishop sat down and wrote the number of, it was 100 of them, and I think that's where he got his problem, and was ejected from the Catholic Church. And we have had a lot of other moments when the Christianity has been challenged, including the killing of who later becomes the first bishop of I think Rome, was definitely killed by the empire of the Romans. So until the Christians, the Africans and Christians all over sit down to read for themselves, this issue of make them read and not reason does not only actually concern us Africans only, but it is global. Although that for us, because we are coming from that loose end of civilization, it becomes a problem. But like Ndugu Rugarama said, because our time is gone, I think it is not true that Africans did not have scholars, that the Africans didn't have a civilization. We had the science that we needed, we had the technology that we needed. Maybe it was crude by that time, but that was the best that we could have. And if we were given time, and if the leadership then had a focus, I think would have been very, very far. Ndugu Rugarama, you are saying.
Comrade Mututa, the truth of the matter is that ours was not anywhere crude. No. We were on a trajectory that we were progressively moving. And there is no way, if we hadn't gotten this rude interruption, we were not going to be successful. So it's just that we were rudely interrupted, we are trying to rediscover ourselves.
And we shall, inshallah. Thank you so much being with us for this time. On Friday again we'll have more time to discuss some of these issues, and of course appreciate your contribution. I've seen some of the messages that have come in today, because by the time has been short, we will begin with those next time we'll have this program on Friday. For now, please stay safe and have a great weekend until we meet next week on Friday again. Have the best of UBC coming your way, more still programs. Thank you so much.
Nkwanga Ramazan is my name, the head teacher of this great school, Ikumbia Seed Secondary School. The school has the staff room well furnished, administration well furnished, the computer lab well furnished, the library wonderful, the multipurpose hall well furnished. The teachers are also enjoying in the staff quarters. The school has teachers totaling to 28. Ikumbia Seed has embraced the new curriculum. I want to thank the government for that bright idea. There are many students that end up in senior 4 with no document. But with the coming of DIT, the skill children are going to have certificates in skills as early as senior 3. And that certificate is equivalent to a senior 4 certificate. Ikumia City Secondary School is a very great school that has influenced the lives of people or changed the lives of people of Ikubia sub-county. I want to thank the parents and the government for this kind of input.
On UBC.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Every Friday 9 p.m. it's one-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role as the owner of the country is not to, be preoccupied by giving credit to my servant.
We have said that if we are to talk to General Museveni, there must be certain conditions in place.
Is it true that you paid 5 million shillings to MPs that voted for?
Was brought to you by MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial *165*3# or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Sent transport to the wrong person. Here's how to reverse it with MTN Mobile Money. Dial *165#. Select My Account. Select Initiate Reversal. You will see your last 3 transactions.